Do you know what the response from the left is right now to Biden calling and the Democrats calling for a ceasefire in Gaza?
They're not calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. All they've done is appropriated the word because they realized that their previous stance of outright rejecting even the word ceasefire was toxic shit and was killing them in the polls. So what they've done is they've pivoted, they've adopted the word, but all they mean is the same thing that they meant by humanitarian pause.
The Democrats are now doing exactly what they wanted. And
no, they're not. They're literally not. What people wanted was a ceasefire, a permanent fucking ceasefire where the genocide just stops. And the Democrats were saying, no, what we want is a humanitarian pause, see, so the genocide can resume after the Palestinians have had a snack. And people were saying, yeah, fuck that. That sounds actually hideous, as it happens. And their polling people said, yeah, I mean, about 80% of your voters think that you're scumbags at this point. Maybe you should change course. And they said, no, we're not going to change course, but we will change rhetoric. And so now, instead of humanitarian pause, they say ceasefire, but they mean just a couple of weeks off.
Yeah, I literally, my brain is going to melt. I'm sorry.
Imagine being so fucking, like, oblivious to the world, so sheltered from reality, so absolutely fucking cosseted in this just hideous, traumatic period, that the thing that pisses you off is that lefties are insisting on a permanent ceasefire and not giving Biden a break for saying that he wants a couple of weeks off from the genocide. I'm sure there probably are others I'm not thinking about, but possibly on this scale, this is the last time that a community in the U.S. experienced this level of just having their entire extended family wiped out deliberately by a state actor. Probably would have been World War II. So, like, Biden is their Hitler. Biden's the guy who is the reason they haven't got relatives in a country where they've had relatives for literally thousands of years. And you can't tell people like that shit. You shouldn't tell them shit. You should be absolutely ashamed that you even think of telling them shit about why they need to vote for him. Is the thing about Xanderhal is that every single time I watch him, he says the worst thing I've ever heard him say. He breaks his own record every time. I mean, this motherfucker, it's worth noting, he accuses Professor Flowers of supporting genocide because she advocates decolonization. But in the last one, he was just spouting, like, literal pro-genocide, pro-Israel talking points that we saw. It was wild.
The left is really not in a good place right now. So many of, like, the lefty figures that I used to respect when I...
Lefty figure. God, yeah. I just kind of want to slap him every time he says lefty.
First started doing content, have started getting into this, like, weird trend of pushing for, like, pseudo-leftist populist LARPing.
Oh, Xanderhal is going to tell us about pseudo-leftist populist LARPing.
For lack of a better way to phrase it, for no other thing to call it. For example, I used to follow this channel. I don't know what happened. I haven't spoken to this person much, but I just know I followed them on Twitter, and I think I was subbed to their channel. They go by Xexizy. Xexizy.
Xexizy. Now I'm kind of curious. First of all, the fact that Xanderhal follows the channel is not an endorsement. I mean, it's just crypto shit. Like, why would he have followed this person in the first place? Hisashiburi, Haku-san.
And they put out a video about a month ago that people have sent to me with the, request that I cover it, called Don't Vote. Now, as you all know...
Okay. Oh, this is on YouTube, not Twitter. Okay. I just want to check out this channel.
What if we cancelled?
Okay. This does not actually look so much like the same... like the same as the Twitter, account that goes by that same name. Profit isn't theft, actually. Would Marx vote for Biden? They don't do many videos. Should we vote for Joe Biden? Okay. I mean...
I am very against the sentiment of not voting. Now, I don't know if this will be a reference to just the primaries, which would be a lot less problematic. I don't really care.
Well, judging from the fact that he's English, or they're English, I don't know what Xexidz's pronouns actually are. I've never heard of this channel until now. But, I mean, I would assume that this is probably a broader point.
Care if people don't vote in the primaries, especially this election. It's far less important. But when it comes to the general election, and obviously the other tertiary things on the ballot, I think it's very important that you get your ass to the voting booth, or at the very least, order a mail-in ballot to send in like a couple weeks early. Get it out of the way. Hell, get it out of the way before Election Day if you can. Your vote will get counted even sooner if you get it done faster. And so, like, yeah, I'm very much against the idea that you shouldn't vote, but I am willing to hear out this video.
He's willing to hear it out. Okay, so this should be interesting. Because I don't know anything about this person, but it seems like, from their titles of their videos, they seem like a fairly standard kind of, like, we're probably going to get a fairly standard, like, Marxist view. We'll see what kind of Marxist, probably, from listening to the arguments, because you can always tell from the style of the discourse where somebody is spending most of their days.
Do you know that some of Xexizi's content before claiming you shouldn't vote has been well reasoned? So,
and actually, this doesn't appear to be the first time that they are saying that this is not something to do.
Maybe I'll be surprised. Maybe I'll learn the actual arcane secret knowledge of why you actually shouldn't vote and becoming
like, I mean, the arcane secret. Motherfucker, read a fucking book. I'm begging you here. Or get the audiobooks. Those are even better sometimes. Sometimes they have amazing readers. But, like, learn shit. You're sitting here in front of a microphone and people actually, inexplicably, care what you think. Try to actually know things.
Completely politically voiceless within our country is actually the most productive thing you can do as a leftist.
Wait, the voting is the most productive thing that you can do as a leftist? Like, what? Like, compared to what exactly? What is he comparing it to? I'd like to see him actually explain that argument.
I'm sure this will have nothing to do with the fact that lefty channels like this one and mine all blew up the most during the tail end of Trump's presidency when the election was coming up.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because last time we looked at him, sorry about that, he was saying you should, like, discount leftists who seem to have been doing well after Trump got in and stuff like that. And he did not admit that he was one of the people who rode Trump's coattails. He rode his cocktails, apparently, too.
I've made efforts to separate myself from the stereotypically far left position of condemning voting. I've admitted that voting doesn't take long. It's fine to encourage somebody to vote who might not otherwise, and that
Okay, so I still don't know Sexidzi's pronouns, unless that's, like, doesn't actually say here. But
generally there is a meaningful difference between the two major parties in the US and
probably
the
not
UK.
he, him.
Okay. We're off to a
Major parties in the US, somebody to vote who might not otherwise, and that generally there is a meaningful difference between the two major parties in the US and the UK.
See, I mean, what gets me about this, having been through this cycle, been through so many elections at this point, I started out taking the view that, that is often misrepresented, that is taken by Chomsky every time around. That there was some sort of marginal utility to having the Democrats in, even though actually it didn't really make much difference and actually voting didn't matter all that much. I believed that for quite a while until it just became impossible to sustain it. Like, at a certain point, they were just moving so clearly, so rapidly to the right to, like, try to catch up to the Republicans on the right, as the Republicans themselves were continuing to move right, that it's like, yeah, this is fucking pointless.
Okay. We're off to a good start. However, I'm worried we're about to get a massive butt. And as a wise man in Game of Thrones,
I mean, I'd rather a massive butt than a massive ass, like, Xanderhal.
once said, nothing said after the word but ever mattered.
My skepticism around voting has come from the inclination of various leftists to put their full organizational weight behind liberal
Nothing said before. You know what I mean.
candidates like Biden or Stanmer, and end up being subsumed into these parties that hate.
This is a good point. This is true. Like, that you have the, like, the Labor Party and the Democratic Party. One of the things that they just do is they swallow up social movements. And, I mean, their main function tends to be to prevent any kind of independent, working class, left organizing. Because it all gets, like, sucked up into the Democratic Party, and then they do nothing with it, but they waste your energy. Is to tell you, okay, just fight within the party to get these things done, and then that doesn't work. And then, before you know it, you're 70 and you've got 10 years till retirement, because the retirement age keeps on going up, and you've still achieved fuck all, except you're, like, now, like, extremely bitter because you spent your life in the Democratic Party.
Us and our beliefs and leave our own goals unpursued. Ultimately,
Okay, this is delusional. I'm sorry. Well, maybe in the UK this is the case, so maybe I'm a little offbeat when it comes to UK politics.
Well, we've already seen he doesn't know shit about UK politics. The last time he talked about UK politics, it became very apparent that he doesn't know who Jeremy Corbyn is or why he is significant in a discussion about the left and electoral politics.
In the US, this is about as off-kilter as you could possibly be. The Democratic Party, especially Biden, has been the most appealing to, like, far left politics I've ever seen.
That, first of all, like, okay, this motherfucker was born in 1999, so this isn't saying much. Second of all, appealing to far left politics, two of his first, like, in the campaign, he said he wanted to jail anarchists. He followed that up by declaring socialism a terrorist ideology. Like, seriously, where this, like, right now, are you gonna tell us the genocide's a way to appeal to the far left?
Do you know what the response from the left is right now to Biden calling and the Democrats calling for a ceasefire in Gaza?
They're not calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. All they've done is appropriated the word because they realized that their previous stance of outright rejecting even the word ceasefire was toxic shit and was killing them in the polls. So what they've done is they've pivoted. They've adopted the word, but all they mean is the same thing that they meant by humanitarian pause.
The Democrats are now doing exactly what they wanted. And
no, they're not. They're literally not. What people wanted was a ceasefire, a permanent fucking ceasefire where the genocide just stops. And the Democrats were saying, no, what we want is a humanitarian pause, see, so the genocide can resume after the Palestinians have had a snack. And people were saying, yeah, fuck that. That sounds actually hideous, as it happens. And their polling people said, yeah, I mean, about 80% of your voters think that you're scumbags at this point. Maybe you should change course. And they said, no, we're not going to change course, but we will change rhetoric. And so now, instead of humanitarian pause, they say ceasefire, but they mean just a couple of weeks off. Palestine, hurrah!
And do you know what? Do you want to know what like lefty posters are framing it as? Dog. Prepare to fucking rage.
Wait, okay, so for Xanderhal, the genocide isn't what you rage about. It's what lefty posters are saying about his man Joe.
If you've been following this whole, like, the way the left has handled this, prepare to fucking rage. This is from the majority.
This is Chuck Schumer, yes.
But don't worry, it's not Sam Cedar being an idiot, it's Emma being an idiot. Not unheard of.
That means so much coming from Xanderhal.
Democrats pivot to blaming Netanyahu as scapegoat for Gaza disaster.
Yeah, that is exactly what they're doing. What they're doing, their whole thing has been to distance themselves from what they are doing. And the way they're doing that is with a bunch of fucking PR photo op bullshit. With fake, these airdrops, which are, like, nowhere near remotely enough. Even as they're not allowing the the miles-long queue of, like, 2,000 trucks waiting at Rafah crossing for the US and Israel to give them permission to enter so they can deliver all their food to the Palestinians who are starving to death. At the same time as the US and Israel are killing everybody, targeted assassinations of everybody in Gaza who is involved in organizing the safe distribution of aid. Like, so, yeah, and they're trying to distance themselves from Netanyahu at the same time as they are sending him every single weapon he needs, about as fast as he can fire.
The Democrats are calling out Israel, its leadership, and its treatment of the Palestinians now. And so the pivot
was done by the Democrats. Now, Xanderhal, riddle me this. Has anything changed about the flow of arms? Have they stopped sending weapons? Have they done anything?
From lefties, because the Democrats must always be bad.
No, the Democrats are bad. They're committing fucking genocide. Like,
the Democrats can never reach the bar. They can never.
They have not attempted to reach the bar. The bar has not moved. The bar has been end the genocide. They're still not doing that. They have changed the words they're using. Yes, I mean, they've been regularly shooting people who show up at any place where there's aid. Because the thing is, the US and Israel coordinate this shit. So Israel knows in advance where this aid's gonna be, and so they can put snipers there. Now, the Palestinian cops in Gaza were organizing safe aid distros, telling people to stay away from the Kuwaiti roundabout, which had been a known ambush trap, so that they could actually get the aid away from the roundabout, away from the snipers, and deliver it to people in other neighborhoods where they could maintain some level of safety. And the US-Israeli response has been to murder every one of the Palestinian cops who was organizing that. They are systematically destroying anything. Right after this maritime corridor started getting talked about, the US and Israel bombed the shit out of an UNRWA warehouse in Rafah. They were counting calories before October 7th, it's worth noting. They had something, you look up the Red Lines document. They calculated literally every single, what the bare minimum for survival, caloric intake for every human being in Gaza was. And then they actually struck a few things off the list. which is why they have to smuggle in things like fresh fruit and veg. They have to smuggle in all sorts of other shit.
Never allow the bar to be reached by the Democrats where they can say, you know what, the Democrats are actually pretty good right now. I support.
But they're not. They're literally not. They're doing genocide, motherfucker. Like, just because they've changed their marketing doesn't change the fact that they're doing genocide. I seem to remember when you wanted to slag off and start racist hate mobs against Professor Flowers that you pretended to be against genocide. He was against genocide when he was saying that decolonization was the same thing. Now all of a sudden we've got like literal genocide, and he's saying that people should give the Democrats a break because they're using the word.
Support the Democrats. That'll never be a thing they can do. That's not a thing they can actually like say ever, like no matter what. And so the bar is always raised. So now
The bar has not been raised once. It has been the same thing. People have been demanding the same thing all along. And he's like trying to talk about it as like Twitter lefties or something like that. It's 80% of the fucking voting base of the Democrats. It's huge numbers of people. And it's even bigger numbers worldwide. It is like literally the entire world practically is demanding an end to this. Not a break from it, an end to it. Like, you notice the Palestinians don't come into it for him. He doesn't give a shit about the Palestinians. He doesn't even pretend to give a shit about the Palestinians. The Palestinians are making it very clear this is not what they're asking for. They want a permanent fucking ceasefire. They want the genocide to end.
it's the Democrats' pivot to blaming Netanyahu. They're blaming Netanyahu. They are
He can't even say Netanyahu. This motherfucker can't even say Netanyahu.
calling out Israel.
No, they're not.
Thing you wanted wasn't the criticism for all
No,
the
this isn't the thing we wanted, motherfucker. I mean, do you seriously think, Xanderhal? Sweet, sweet boy. Do you really think that the U.S. conducts its relationship with Israel in the U.S. English language press? Do you think that Biden, when he wants to talk to Netanyahu, calls up the New York Times, or has his press people call up the New York Times? Do you think that's how that works? They have phones. They can get Netanyahu on the phone 24 hours a day. They will fucking, at this point, Israel is so fucking desperately dependent on the U.S. for just continuous weapons shipments because they keep on using the shit up in this genocidal onslaught that, Netanyahu could have a turd hanging halfway out of his ass. He would still run to get the phone, even at the risk of the carpet. That's how that works. What he says in the press, what Biden says in the U.S. press, that's for our benefit. That's for the benefit of rubes like you, Xanderhal. That's who that's for. As far as Israel's concerned, it means nothing as long as the weapons keep coming. And the weapons keep coming.
these months that the Democrats won't call out Israel. They won't say anything. They won't even say ceasefire. Now Biden is literally...
except now they're saying it and they don't mean the thing that people were calling for.
organizing a, in his words, ceasefire between Hamas and Israel.
No, he isn't. The latest thing, they keep on coming up with these bogus-ass resolutions. He doesn't mention that the U.S. has vetoed actual ceasefire resolutions in the UN Security Council 3 times now, possibly 4. I may have missed one there. At least 3 times now. That now the U.S. is having one that says if the Palestinians meet various conditions that they literally cannot meet, then Israel needs to stop doing the genocide. It is designed to ensure that it will not be enforced. In fact, Israel, the chief of staff of the Israeli military, said today, or maybe it was yesterday, time zones get in the way, sometime in the last 24 hours anyway, that the people in Al-Shifa Hospital, to be fair, this was not going on at the time when this is from a week ago, in Al-Shifa Hospital, which is under massive attack right now, he said the people there are being used as hostages. That the idea is that the Palestinians at the negotiating table are being told that essentially, if you don't drop your demand for a ceasefire, then the people in Al-Shifa hospital will die. That's what he's defending. That is what he is trying to avoid talking about here.
And it's like, well, he's not doing enough. He didn't do it sooner. Don't care.
Yeah, he's not doing anything, actually. He's literally not doing anything. He's still sending weapons to make the genocide happen, motherfucker.
Yeah, I literally, my brain is going to melt. I'm sorry.
Imagine being so fucking, like, oblivious to the world, so sheltered from reality, so absolutely fucking cosseted in this just hideous, traumatic period, that the thing that pisses you off is that lefties are insisting on a permanent ceasefire and not giving Biden a break for saying that he wants a couple of weeks off from the genocide. I mean, like, I pay close attention. I follow a lot of people in Gaza. A lot of the people I follow in Gaza are now dead, I should note. But I pay close attention to it. And so I know, I am hearing about what's going on from people who are on the ground there, and it is the most hideous, fucked up shit. I have, like, never really looked away from fucked up, traumatic things going on, especially if there are things being done by the U.S., whether directly or through, puppet states like Israel in my life. And I can't think of anything that compares to this. That, that is just the subliminal thing that is constant, even if I'm not directly thinking about it, in the background all the fucking time. That, like, the people in Gaza might not last until November. Like, the UN is saying it is the most rapid nutritional degradation of nutritional status in a population they have ever seen. And this is people who are specialized in understanding the dynamics of people starving to death saying that. And so I am constantly walking around with that and thinking about, like, how I'm really feel like I'm not doing enough, because I don't think any of us is really completely rising to the occasion in the Imperial Core. I mean, and it's impossible to stand. And he's sitting here, and what pisses him off is that lefties on Twitter want the genocide to end and don't want to, and are being mean to his pal Joe.
Sorry. I get that Biden is not great. He is not.
He's not great. You hear that? He's not great. I mean, sometimes you just got to do genocide. He's not great, but I mean, he's just a little genocidal. You gotta excuse the man's foibles. He likes to sexually harass women and do genocide.
Not perfect, but we have two choices, and abstaining from voting does not make it so that you are abstaining.
This is such a ridiculous framing. Because again, there is no guarantee that there will be anyone left alive in Gaza in November if this thing fucking keeps up the way it has been. So talking about it like, oh, well, Trump's gonna be more genocidal. Like, literally, all Trump's been doing, all his people have been doing is saying out loud what Biden's already doing. They are not saying anything new. They're not making any departure. It's just they're saying the quiet part out loud. But, I mean, if this thing is not ended way before that, then it probably won't matter. And the thing is, well, part of what he's also just leaving out, I mean, I think about this a lot, because I've been, like, I do a lot of, like, research into, like, my own genealogy, the part of my family that didn't leave Germany in time. And so, I was looking into this and dotting I's and crossing T's and shit in that research, as I'm hearing about all these people in the Palestinian community here, whose entire extended family has been wiped out by Joe Biden. And it's like, this is literally, I'm sure there probably are others I'm not thinking about, but possibly on this scale, this is the last time that a community in the US experienced this level of just having their entire extended family wiped out deliberately by a state actor. Probably would have been World War II. So, like, Biden is their Hitler. Biden's the guy who is the reason they haven't got relatives in a country where they've had relatives for literally thousands of years. And you can't tell people like that shit. You shouldn't tell them shit. You should be absolutely ashamed that you even think of telling them shit about why they need to vote for him. And, like, because how? But he has, like, insulated himself completely. Yeah, I mean, when I say we, I'm not talking specifically about me and chat. I'm talking about, like, the entire on a population level. I'm talking about, like, on a population level, it's these marches and these symbolic protests, and yeah, that's not gonna do it. We're at the 20th anniversary of the failure of the anti-war movement against the invasion of Iraq, which was conducted entirely via AB marches, and it didn't do it. And we need to be learning, in the US, in Europe, in the places that are providing the supply chain for this genocide, we need to be learning from that. I mean, I'm not specifically singling out anyone in chat, and I am very much applying this to myself. I feel like I'm not doing enough. I mean, but it's not so much an individual thing. I'm speaking on sort of a population level here, on a sort of a movement level, that we're really not doing it. And I think we need to think about that and reassess our way of doing things and reconsider and change course, because the shit's still going on, and there are levers that we can touch. Yeah, I mean, there are some of us who are flat out just trying to survive and aren't in a position to go out and, like, go on the barricades too. I don't mean to erase that. Believe me, I don't mean to erase that at all, Phoenix. I'm speaking on a very broad sort of population level. But, I mean, this motherfucker sitting here talking about, like, the most maddening thing he's ever seen is that people are hurting Biden's feelings. Well,